I'm very grateful to be here. It's good to see all of you again. It's particularly good to see folks there from Clark County and Lauderdale County back in my district, and I'm certainly pleased to be here and proud to be able to address you. I am the Speaker Pro Tempore of the Mississippi House. People ask me what that means sometimes. I say, well, pro tem means for the time being, which means when the Speaker's not around, I'm the Speaker. So I don't see him around, so I guess that makes me the Speaker, but please don't tell him I said so. Actually, Speaker Gunn and I have a lot in common. He mentioned I'm a University of Alabama graduate, and I did. I performed 4 years in the Southeastern Conference at the University of Alabama, and of course the Speaker performed in the old Southwest Conference at Baylor. He was quarterback, I played trumpet, but that's the truth. Another difference, I think, between the Speaker and the Speaker Pro Tem, I think the critical difference, people ask me, what is the difference between the Pro Tem and the Speaker? I say, well, the Speaker's office has a bathroom in it. The Speaker Pro Tem's office used to be a bathroom. And that's literally true. I have a beautiful office. It's small, as you can imagine. It's what is now the Management Committee room, the Rules Committee room, used to be in ages past the Speaker's office. Many of you may not have known that, and the little cubby hole where the Speaker Pro Tem hangs his hat is actually the former bathroom. So that is the truth. I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but I'm a Baptist too. I will say I was reminded when the Speaker talked about being on a pastor search committee. I once was on a pastor search committee for my church. Glenn DeWeese, many of you remember Senator DeWeese is deceased now, but he was President Pro Tem of the Senate, and he was the chairman of the committee. We went to visit a little church down in, well, it was actually a large church, forget which one, but in South Mississippi to hear a prospective pastor preach. And of course, you know, you want to be undercover when you do that. So we all spread out. We had this game plan. You know, just two of you sit over here, one over here, three, you know, spread out. We were confident had done it right. We were undercover. And the first little break after maybe the first hymn where I guess they share the peace, you know, you turn around, you welcome your guests, that sort of thing. This elderly gentleman sitting directly in front of us turned around and said, you know, he's bad to drink. And we knew right away that our cover had been blown. We were not as discreet as we thought we were. But I will have to say this. I want to echo what Senator Brown said. The House and Senate leadership work remarkably well together, and with the governor's office as well. I know you see things sometimes in the newspapers, hear it on TV of how, well, these folks, you know, there's some rivalry here, this isn't working like it should, they're not communicating maybe. You see this sort of thing. You know, if I had to sell newspapers in this economy, I'd probably write some of those things too. But the truth is, the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker get along very well. On policy, they're on the same page, and the same is true with the Governor. We have a good working relationship. I think that's going to mean a lot for us, certainly the rest of this four-year term. I heard the Speaker speak as you did, and so I don't want to repeat really what he said. I will say this, in my real life, I'm a lawyer. I draw contracts from time to time, and you're business people, you read contracts, and you know quite frequently you might have a schedule or an exhibit to the contract, and somewhere there's language in that contract that says something to the effect about construction, something to the effect that if you know, in the event of any conflict between this provision or any provision in the Schedule A or whatever, and in the terms of the main body of the contract, the terms of the contract shall prevail and be controlling for all purposes. You've read that sort of stuff. So take it for what it's worth. If you hear anything here out of my mouth that's in conflict with what the Speaker said earlier, you know which is the controlling authority. If you have any doubt about that, I'll be happy to talk to you about that later as well. But I do want to touch briefly on education reform and a couple of other things. And I don't want to repeat what the Speaker said, but it's critical that you understand a few things that we're trying to accomplish here. First of all, our education system is not performing like we want it to do. And I think that's true. I think we'd all agree with that. In anything you look at, Mississippi is down toward the bottom. And there's no point pointing fingers about that. It's just a fact. Whether we're 46, 47, 48, or whatever, we're not where we want to be. One of the disturbing things is America's not where it needs to be. You look at, in fact, recently there was a study that came out. America's ranked like 17th among developed nations in the world in our educational system. I had the privilege last June of attending a conference in Washington, D.C., sponsored by the National NCSL, National Conference of State Legislatures. Arnie Duncan, Secretary of Education, President Obama's Secretary of Education, was in the room, question and answer sort of thing. I had the privilege of talking to him about different issues. One of the things I asked him, I said, we just went through a session in the Mississippi legislature where charter schools were discussed. What's the administration's position on charter schools? Arnie Duncan said to my face, and a room full of people said, good charter schools are part of the solution. And then he went on and talked about the problems we have in our educational system and being ranked 17th in the world, and how that can't continue, and us to continue to expect the same standard of living that we enjoy today. It just cannot. We've got to do better. I saw some ACT assessments of Mississippi. 11% of our high school graduates are fully prepared for college in all four of the criteria that the ACT measures. I think that's reading, English, science, and math. I'm pretty sure those are the four. 2% of African American high school graduates in the state of Mississippi are fully prepared in all four of those categories, according to ACT. Now, that's not to say there are not more kids that are going to be successful in college and can't but if that's any indication of where we are, we certainly need some improvement. And we're committed to try to do that. Reasonable people can differ over what we need to do, but I don't think there can be any real disagreement over where we are and that we want to do better. And we intend to do that. One of the ways, and there's a whole range of things the Speaker mentioned, and certainly charter schools is only one part of that piece in the educational reform package that we'll be discussing this year. But a couple of things I'd like to make a point about charter schools. Number one, the Speaker did say this, this is not being imposed on anyone. The legislature is going to authorize charter schools. They will not exist anywhere that parents within a community don't want them to exist, and come forward and put that forward and have it authorized and meet all the criteria that's going to be in. They won't exist anywhere where the parents don't want them. Number two, these, and I've got to tell you, this is a disturbing thing for me. I have heard, and it's out there, I don't know where it's coming from, that somehow or another this is an effort, or at least will have the effect of resegregating our public schools. And I can't tell you how disturbed I am about that, because I truly believe that if that's being said in some quarters, it can only be because people don't fully understand what our legislation provides and what the law is anyway. Come on, let's be real here. We can't segregate schools if we wanted to do that. Of course, nobody wants to do that. But secondly, the bill we presented last year and the bill we'll present this year will specifically provide that any charter school, which again is only going to exist where the parents want it to exist, but any charter school will have to reflect the demographics of the district in which it's located. Now, in cities in the state, I think, I'm pulling this off the top of my head, but I believe the city of Meridian Public Schools, and I see Percy Bland back here, you can probably correct me, but I think it's around 90% African American, thereabouts. Any charter school that were to exist in the city of Meridian, first of all, you'd have to have Meridian parents want it there, and they'd have to apply and have to get through all the process of doing that. Secondly, any charter school that exists there is going to have that same demographic makeup as the district as a whole. So I can tell you, I have no patience at all with anyone who will tell me that this is some sort of segregation effort. That's, I think, a horrible thing to say, and it reflects either ignorance or it reflects some sort of malice in putting out erroneous information. That's not what this is about. We have school districts, there are 20 school districts around this state that are graded F, okay? That are F-graded districts. Now, you heard the Speaker say we're only going to start with 15 per year because we do want to make this a success. But some of these kids in some of these districts don't have a chance, folks. They do not have a chance. And I'm often confronted by people that say, you know, if you don't have parental involvement, if you don't have the family involved, you're not going to have it. And if kids don't want to learn, it's not going to matter what you call it or where you put them, and that's absolutely the case. But if you have a district where you do have, even if it's a relatively small number of motivated students and parents that want to do better for their kids, we're going to give them a choice to institute a charter school if they want to do that. And that's something we think will help. One final point I want to make, and I can make points all day, I guess, but one thing I did want to make, and the speaker touched on this, that nobody's saying this is a panacea, this is going to be some sort of magic bullet. That's absolutely the truth. And in fact, if you look at data from around the experience of other charter schools, you will find that you don't see a dramatic deal here where the charter schools are way up here and your traditional public schools are way down here. You don't see that at all. We've got a lot of good public schools that teach you, got good teachers, doing well. You do see, however, an incremental change, that it is somewhat better, that charter schools on the whole perform slightly better, and it is incrementally, it's not a dramatic thing. But the dramatic thing you also see, and this is the exciting thing, and this is why there's the push for charter schools. The dramatic thing you see is not that charter schools are performing a lot better than the traditional public schools. What you see is because of the injection of competition into the system by bringing that charter school in, lo and behold, everybody's performance rises. Now, the folks in this room are not unfamiliar with the concept of competition, and that may not catch you as a surprise. But we see that. We see that in data from Florida, from Indiana, other states. That's what we want to replicate in Mississippi. And I just suggest to you that we've got to try something. Nobody wants to do away with the system we have. These are public schools. They're going to be funded the same way with other public schools. They're going to have the same sort of assessments. They're not going to be any different in that respect. And in fact, with some of the financial strictures are going to be more difficult. They're also going to provide, they run these by contract, and they, by the way, will be nonprofit organizations that will do this. Another thing you hear out there, oh, this is some sort of money-making deal, some sort of profiteering. That's absolutely nonsense. These will be nonprofit organizations that run these things, and they will contract to provide certain results. And guess what? If they don't provide those results as they've contracted to do, they're out of here. In fact, a contract will provide for that. It won't even be necessary to do anything other than they're gone. There's going to be strict accountability there. We're going to have good charter school legislation. I think we're going to have broad bipartisan support for it. If you have concerns, and I hope you do, because it's a subject that you need to engage with, help us. I tell people, don't rail against charter schools. For one thing, we're going to have some form of charter school system. I truly believe that. The stakes are too high not to have. I've given you the statistics on that. There are any number of reasonable ways to put one together. Give us your input. Tell us what you think's called for. It's a very important. The governor wants this to be a transformational system, a transformational session of the Mississippi legislature. We all want to go to the same place. We all want to go to the same place. It's not about schools, certainly not about school districts. It's about children and about educational opportunity. And every legislator worth his salt, every educational advocate worth their salt, and there are a lot of good ones, working, trying to contribute and doing a good job. Everybody wants to get the same place, and we just got to find a way to get there together. I was going to touch on also the budget and Medicaid. I'm not going to do that. I've run over my time. I told you I was a Baptist. I'm sorry. But I will say this about Medicaid. I think the President Pro Tem is exactly right. There's still a lot of unknowns out there. That's been the problem with the Affordable Health Care Act, frankly, from day one. No one really knows a lot about even now, what the effect is going to be. And until we get a better idea about how the federal government's going to handle these dish payments with hospitals and really kind of sort through the numbers, we're getting conflicting information about what the real cost will be. I'm committed, and I know the Speaker is, and I believe the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor, and I know this sounds terribly naive, but I do not think this needs to be a political decision, certainly not a partisan political decision. We know it's got Obama's name on it, and he's not of my party, but there's no business making this a political decision. We've got to make a dollars and cents decision. We've got to look at this with a hard fiscal eye and determine whether or not we can afford it. And I think that's what we're about in this process. I think there is a healthy skepticism because we've seen some real issues about whether we can afford it. But I'm committed to addressing it in as non-political a way as can be done, if anything can be done like that in the walls of this place. But we're going to do our best. I want to say my door is open to you. I have a small office, as I've told you, but I'd be welcome to see you. I'm on the 3rd floor. Anything I can do for you, certainly I hope you will avail yourself of that opportunity. Thank you again so much for the privilege of being here. Welcome to your capital. And again, anything we can do, let us know. Thank you.